Oh, hey, I'm glad you're here. Growing up in our family video store felt like a safe haven from the world outside. There, I was free to get lost in the strange worlds of movies. I could travel to campus in pieces. I could go to hell in Highway to Hell. I could wander the woods in Just Before Dawn. I could wish I was better at video games while watching The Last Starfighter or Tron. Or anytime Journey came on the radio in the shop. The arcade next door had the Journey arcade game, and I sucked at it almost as much as Dragon's Lair, which always hurt because he was named Dirk the Daring. Anyway, by far the worst thing ever was being forced to leave, especially because of school. School was the opposite of the video store. There was nothing interesting to look at, no zombies, no chainsaw wielding maniacs. I had one friend, but he moved a lot, and before that, I invented an imaginary friend, but if you recall that story, I gave him a job in Hawaii, so he was never there. In short, school has always sucked. Now, my daughter's 10, she's in 5th grade, and I hate school again. I hate the teachers who don't really care about your kid. I really hate the homework. Just the other day, we were doing her homework, and the word problem was like, "What is the volume of this rectangle?" And I thought, I hope it's big enough to hold my corpse because I want to crawl in it and die. My point is usually I don't enjoy movies about school or set around them, minus maybe The Chocolate War. However, if you want me to like one, add a ghost, or two, or four. And that's just what this movie does. But before we get to it, later this week is when I will post about the 4 movies on the Patreon. Right now, it's in the edit. It turned out a little longer, so I'm giving it some time to be the best that it can be. So thank you to everyone that's on our Patreon that reads these posts about movies that I can really do a deep dive into. But right now, let's talk about this movie. The film is Gakkou no Kaidan. The guest is a janitor, and this is VH Greetings and salutations. This is VHS, the podcast where each episode is about a film and the guest has a profession or experience portrayed in the film. I'm your host, Dirk Marshall, and my guest you may have heard on our Toxic Avenger episode is Joe Smith. Welcome back.
Hi, how's it going?
Very well. And yourself, how have things been since last we spoke?
Always wild, always crazy. School never stops,
Mm-hmm.
and we just keep going.
Yes. Well, good. I'm glad you're here because I have some questions about janitors and their role in a school. So I think we'll touch on some things not touched on by Toxic Avenger.
I'm okay. I'm ready for any conversation that we have,
Okay.
especially about this movie, because not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but I really, really enjoyed it. So,
Yes. Okay, awesome. That film that brings us together is Gakkou no Kaidan, also known as Haunted School, aka School Ghost Stories. It's a 1995 Japanese horror film directed by Hideyuki Hirayama. It follows a group of school children who encounter spirits and other supernatural happenings in an abandoned wing of their elementary school. The film is the first installment in the School Ghost Stories film series, which was followed by part 2 in 1996, and then, of course, 3 and 4. Do I own all 4? Absolutely. Yes. I searched the ends of the earth for these, and at the time of this recording, nearly impossible to find these movies, and that's a real shame. So I can't really tell you where to look for the film, but if you hear this and you need to see it, and trust me, you do, just email me or DM me, and I can help you navigate the internet waters. However, If you would like to read more on all four films on the series, there's only one place on the internet that you can do so, and that's our Patreon. Head on over to patreon.com/VHUS. As the time of this airs, you can find my musings there. For just a few dollars, you can help support all the artists that we support that make this weird little podcast what it is. Um, so, again, that's patreon.com/VHUS to hear about what you're about to hear about and three more. So, there you go. As I said, the film's directed by Hideyuki Hirayama. He began directing around 1990 with Maria's Stomach, but really had a hit in 1995 with this film. He made four total, and he's still working today, which is pretty awesome. Now, we will do our best to paint the picture for the style and tone of this film. Joe, how would you describe this to someone who hasn't seen it?
Oh, geez. Well, as I was watching it, I really felt that it had some anime kind of
Mm-hmm.
vibes to it. Did not really realize that there was an associated manga series and
Yeah.
anime series until I did a little looking with apparently a legendary American dub to it. So, I mean, it just really looks like a live action, yeah, anime.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but from its time, definitely got some 80s kind
Mm-hmm.
of Monster Squad, Goonies type vibes from it.
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly how I would describe it. It's the thing that really drove me to seek this out initially was one image on the internet, and that is the anatomical man that we'll get to in the biology classroom. And I was like, what is this? I have to see this. And I searched and searched and searched, knowing that the image was horrific, but it's family entertainment, basically. So I was like, I have to see how this plays out. That's like one of my favorite things is like kinder trauma movies or, ghost stories for kids. Those of us that grew up pre-internet and were reading books, there was like the story of the girl with the green ribbon around her neck, and stuff like that that I've enjoyed introducing my daughter to now. And she's like, "Oh, that's so creepy," or whatever, and we read the books over and over and over. These ghost story movies are really fantastic, and I hope by doing this episode that what'll happen is someone will put out a set of all four now, and it'll be really reasonably priced and easy for people to find, unlike what I have done and paid for. Um, so, kind of Amblin Goonies vibes, people, is what we're saying. I would watch 1,000 of these. If they just keep introducing more yokai, I would just keep watching it. For anyone that doesn't know, yokai, it's a Japanese term for supernatural beings. It can be ghouls, ghosts, demons, tricksters. I love all the yokai movies. And since you can't find this, if you want to see some yokai stuff, Arrow did put out a set called Yokai Monster Collection. This is a really great set. It has some classics on there, like 100 Monsters, along with Ghosts. But it also has Takashi Miike's The Great Yokai War. So there's some really crazy, wonderful monsters to be found on that set from Arrow. But we're talking about Gakkou no Kaidan. So let's press play on Haunted School from 1995. We start with creepy music and images of a school abandoned. There's creepy kid art hanging on the walls, and we hear a phone call and a little girl's voice. She says, "I'm Mary, and I'm in the garden." And then she rings, calls back. She says she's in the entrance. He goes into the hallway, and she calls from another phone. She says, "I'm behind you." So he turns around slowly, and we're introduced to a floating watermelon, which turns around, and it's carved like a jack o' lantern, and then we don't know what happens, but he vanishes, and then we see the silhouette of a little ghost kid walking down the hall, and we get credits. What was your thoughts of this opening sequence of this thing that you did not know what it was?
Yeah, man, I so usually when it comes to J horror,
Mm-hmm.
you get this idea in your head of all of the Ring and The Grudge
Mm-hmm.
and getting into Audition and getting into some of these other more extreme type movies. So I had no idea going into it that all of a sudden I was going to be faced with this jack-o'-lantern pumpkin that, according to the kids telling the story, it sucked his blood.
Right.
He didn't die from it, but turned him pale or something like
Yeah.
that, which was really great because, then it just kind of turns into these kids telling this old ghost story about the school that may or may not have actually happened. But I, it was very deep laughter when
Yeah.
I was faced. with that pumpkin that's really in your face.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's so because like instantly with the hallway scene, like it's not playing like upbeat happy music and then this phone call happens. I mean, it's we're straight into like a Japanese ghost story and it's creepy. The voice on the phone,
もしもし、私、メリーさん。今、正門の前にいるの。
the fact that it keeps calling, you know this dude's alone and things aren't going to go his way. And the way that it kind of plays out that suddenly it's like, "Oh, oh, but this is also for children." Is kind of the
Yeah.
vibe. And then as you said, it transitions to the kids telling the story and I thought that was such a great transition to be like, "Oh, cool. Okay, now we're seeing the kids spreading this sort of word of mouth."
Like just like they do.
Yeah. I bet. Do you encounter that sort of things at the school?
Oh, I hear all sorts of stories of what so and so did and what so and so did, and then it just gets on down the line until you have no idea what anybody's talking about.
Right. Do you ever hear tales of ghosts?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it
Yeah.
mostly comes from the adults. For some reason it doesn't really come from the kids because I think they
They're there
like
during the day. It's probably
it,
less
right, but we've got some things at
nice.
our school. So
Excellent. Next, we hear the kids telling the stories to each other, and the kids are all attending the last day of school for the year. Kids' messes on the last day. It's got to be, is that the worst cleanup day for you? Is the last day of school?
typically they take care of a lot of that stuff like in the week leading up because they're done with curriculum
Mm-hmm.
and they're done with they're just trying to fill time on those days, so they've got it down to where that Monday they're already like cleaning out their lockers and taking their time and doing all of
Right.
that, so by the end of the day they're not even bringing backpacks and they're just like leaving. So I think that people have been doing it long enough that they know now that if we spread this out over a week, one, it makes the week go by,
Mm-hmm.
two, it's less of a mess, and then everybody just sort of, leaves. However, once the kids do leave, that's when the really real cleaning starts for
Right.
the summer, when we're there by ourselves all day, just gutting rooms and
Mm.
cleaning from top to bottom. So.
It's a deep clean.
A very, very deep clean.
Yeah.
Everything leaves the room. Carpets get extracted. Things just get, yeah, special projects. Floors get waxed and buffed and all that fun stuff.
Right.
Janitors don't get the summers off like the teachers and the kids do.
That was my next question because, okay, wait, no, I'll just save it for when we get to him. But
Sorry.
yeah, yes, I'm so glad you brought that up. So we next see the boys looking for a ball, and one kicks it, and it knocks the head off of a statue, which can never be good. And then a teacher is rushing to school on his bike, and we see Kensuke get a ride from his mom on a moped. And as she leaves, the teacher almost runs into her, and he spills his files all over in the walkway there. We next see the whole school listen as the administrator announces it's the last day of school.
明日から1年生には初めての、そして6年生にとっては最後の夏休みです。さあ、みんなはどんな楽しい計画を考えているかな。でもね、ふわついてるだけではダメですよ。
And then we can see the abandoned school wing sort of lurking there in the background. In the teacher's classroom, there's one red handprint on the ceiling, and the kids are talking about if it was Hanoko, the school ghost, that did it. So the teacher says, like, well, who believes in the ghost? And they all raise their hand, and one kid has a red hand. Pretty genius.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. Do you ever encounter messy pranks at school?
Um, you know, anymore, they've gotten really good about kind of catching a lot of them before they happen. And at an elementary school, I mean, it's usually not as bad as like in the middle schools, but
Sure.
there was a time when it was, popular on TikTok with kids going through and just destroying bathrooms because
Oh,
apparently it's a TikTok thing.
mm,
I don't understand it.
yeah.
But I mean, I messed around a lot in school, but never to a point where it was going to be uh destructive that someone was really going to have to go around and okay, maybe a little bit,
Yeah.
but like
I didn't either. I just tried to survive school. I don't know. I didn't really have any free time or energy to put into like
Yeah.
pranking someone or destroying property or I don't know. I never really thought
Yeah.
about that, but that's interesting.
Most of the time when it happens, and I don't know if it's a prank or just some kids messing around, just lots of toilet paper in a toilet to clog the toilet,
Right.
Hey, funny, I guess, somebody has to clean it up, but well, we have ways of sort of figuring out who those kids might have been, and then
Mm-hmm.
it gets shut down pretty quick.
Right.
So,
That makes sense.
yeah.
The teacher says the old school is off limits. And later, the big brother and little Mika are walking home. She realizes she left her crayons and she has to go back. So she enters the empty school, runs to get her supplies really quickly. And on the way out, she notices a ball just start bouncing next to her, which leads her to the old schoolhouse. It bounces inside. She follows it down the hall, up the steps to the bathroom. She knocks on the stall, opens the door, but we see nothing. But we hear a giggle, and we can see from above, so we know that's never good. And then her feet lift off the floor, and she's gone.
Anako-san.
But she was also very happy. She
Yeah.
was like smiling whenever she saw whatever it was. I think I would be freaking out.
Oh, I would have lost my mind. Absolutely. And I do. I'm not a huge paranormal person. I'm not like an anti in any way, but I just mean like I feel totally fine alone at home in the dark, walking around the house, no qualms whatsoever. But if I watch one of these like J horror ghost stories or something, any sound that my house makes, I'm suddenly like, oh my god, like what is like it just can shift so quickly for myself.
Yeah.
So I'll only watch those when the rest of my family's here. Like if they're out of town, I'm like, that's not what I'm watching for fun because I will freak myself out. But yeah, I would lose my mind if I was encountering a ghost girl in the bathroom. Two more boys, Kensuke and Shota, enter and head to the biology room. There's one boy telling the story of a murderous baboon in the school that had blood under its nails, and it's a short story that doesn't really lead to anything. And then they leave with a skeleton. So we see as they leave, the dead frogs and lizards in jars start to breathe, which is like a super cool image. Like I was already in on the film, and now I was like, if you're giving me this, like I'm sold.
Yeah. Aside from that, like, and I know we're really early in the movie,
Yep.
but the floating watermelon
Yeah.
jack-o'-lantern
Yeah.
head, I that was really the only thing that looked like it might have been fairly digital
Yes.
or,
Yes. Absolutely. In
and
'95.
everything. Yeah, and then everything else was just kind of incredibly solid practical effects.
Yeah. That's a great point. Like I think special effects wise, outside of the opening intro watermelon, it's more for people to kind of get this vibe. It's like Ghostbusters. It's like optical effects and practical effects,
Mhm.
and they're really well matched. Like this isn't a thing where I'm like, well, I wish they had more money because the budget, because it all looks really rad.
Yeah.
Next, Big Brother shows up, and another boy is drawing a pentagram on the ground outside. He calls for his sister Mika, but hears nothing. And we see the boy's book outside reads Magic Circles Beat Devils, which is a great thing for the book to say. Big Brother explores the abandoned halls, and then suddenly a skeleton comes at him, but it's just the two other boys pranking. Outside, the door opens, and the pentagram boy looks inside, sees the little girl go up the stairs that we saw in the beginning, the back silhouette of the ghost. So he thinks it's little sister. He enters, and the door slams shut behind him. This ghost school is just eating up kids left and right. It's pretty great. In a store, Kazu, I don't know about the pronunciation on his
Mm.
name, but one of the two twins.
I don't envy you having to try to do
Uh,
all the
yeah,
names
it's
and
really
everything.
difficult, but one of the boys sees his twin brother reflected in the cooler door, which is a really cool effect because we didn't know they were twins, I don't think, up until this point. And so you think it's his reflection, but it doesn't move when he moves. And then you realize, like, oh, he's psychically linked to his twin brother, something that's never brought up in the film. So he goes off to the abandoned school to save his brother who's trapped. And inside, the two pranksters and Big Brother find a shaking cabinet, but inside, it's the pentagram boy from the beginning. Big Brother heads upstairs alone, and the other three walk the halls with the skeleton. And this is where Pentagram Boy tells the other two that his brother threw up, and everyone calls them the Throw Up Brothers.
Yes. Yes.
You have to
Great
have some
nickname.
Throw Up Brothers at your school, I bet.
I don't know if we've got brothers, but man, it was twice today. We're kicking on to that. We're kicking on to that time of year where it it just starts to become more and more of a thing, and
Yeah.
it'll eventually die down a little bit and turn into other types of getting sick. But
Yeah.
today was especially barfy.
For anyone that hasn't picked up on the fact that Joe was the star of our janitor episode for Toxic Avenger, as I mentioned in the beginning, go back and listen to that because we delve way more into the job in that episode. But in that, I share the story of elementary school, and what I always remember is the carpeted hallway and the sawdust.
Yep. Yeah. Just like the weird cellulose sand that smells like, well, it smells like pine now, which
It didn't.
doesn't help it
Yeah,
really.
right. Like when
Oh.
people have potpourri in a bathroom, you go in and you're like, no, I know what took place in here, and it smells like rose petals at the same time.
Yeah.
It's very disturbing.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I hope the puke dies down soon.
Eventually. It always does.
After that, Big Brother sees a girl in the mirror. It's Kaori from 6th grade. She's there now, hanging out with all of them.
誰？怖かったの。誰もいなかったから。ごめんね。よかった。一人じゃなかったんだ。でっけえ妹。違うよ。何組？6年3組。小村香織。じゃあ一番年上だ。
So they're deciding what to do when behind one of them rises up. I'm describing it as a pink monkey dude who's sitting cross-legged and has see-through skin like Slimer, and he's giving the thumbs up and flying around.
I loved him.
早く出ないとマジでサッカー中継始まっちゃうじゃんかよ。なんだよ。
I mean, what went through your mind when the movie introduces this yokai ghost?
I mean, at that point in time, we'd had the little scares and like the ghosts and everything. But then when little pink thing showed up, I was like, all right, let's buckle up, guys. Ride here, because after that I didn't really know what to expect, because it's really hard to describe weird dog. It had like axes and that's one thing that I'm so jealous about, with that culture and the yokai.
Yeah.
How they've got all of these spirits and each of them are so unique.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got poltergeists.
Yeah.
Or that's a ghost.
That's it.
But they've got weird pink thing with axes that'll like laugh at you and just hop away.
Yeah, and he's like throwing peace signs and giving you thumbs up, and his tongue's hanging out, and he's having like the best time, it seems like. He's not concerned with scaring them, even though they're scared of seeing it.
Yeah, he didn't seem malicious in any way or evil, just sort of there.
Yeah. And I went through list after list after list online of what I could find of yokai, and I found a lot, but I did not find this guy anywhere under any of the words I tried to use to describe him. So if anyone's listening and knows what this guy's based on, let me know. Because also, for those listening that maybe know of Pokemon, a lot of Pokemon are based off of yokai. So there's just a rich history there of these things. And like you said, in America, we just have like a ghost And it's like always a ghost from like the Western era. Like there's been no new ghosts since the Old West, and all they do is like stand in one hallway of a hotel or maybe move your wallet 2 inches to the right on your nightstand. It's like it's so boring. And there it's like
Yeah.
anything can happen and will, and they're all these different shapes and these different intentions, and it's just like it's just so rich. I would, like I said, I'd watch 1,000 of these if they just had the next one, the next one, the next. Just have a book of yokai that one ghost is making all of the images from. Like I would watch that forever, you know?
I didn't realize how many sequels there were to this
Yeah.
when you had sent me, and now it is. I really I don't one. I'm a little upset
Yeah.
because now I have to watch all of them.
Yes.
I'm sure I will enjoy them,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm looking forward to digging into more of this.
It's really it's a really strong series. Even though most films by the fourth one you're kind of like, okay, I don't know what we're doing, but because it's the same director, he like gives you some familiar things and then he also kind of introduces some new things. So it shows growth. I don't know. I think they're wonderful. I wouldn't want them rebooted, but it's something you easily could do and you could swap in different. I don't want to spoil it for anyone listening, but it's not like anything's defeated in this really. Like there's something going on for sure, but it's not like there's I don't know. We'll get to There's not like there's a central enemy. Do you know what I mean? Like something has happened that needs to be rectified,
Right.
but I don't know. Okay, but we'll get to it, people. We'll get to it. So next, one throw-up brother walks around the grounds with the teacher, and despite all the kids banging on the doors, they can't hear them. So we have this sort of mystical thing at work where the people inside the building can kick and scream all they want. No one can hear you, even if they're face to face with you through glass. Cut to Moped Mama from the beginning at her motorcycle repair shop. She gets a call that Kensuke never arrived home. So she's like, well, that's weird.
ちょっと直してくださいよこれ。
お釈迦だねこれ。
お釈迦。
やっぱりな。はい、お電話変わりました。え？ケンスケ？
ダメだこれ。
家にいません。うるさいんだよ。
ローンが残ってる。
ええ。まあそうでしょうね。お宅の翔太君と一緒でしょうね。ええ。静かにしろ。
ああ、いつもだったら特に晩飯代せびりに来てる時間なんですけどね。
And then back in the school, it's dark now, and the kids all light candles to carry around, which I was like, yes, turn up the spookiness. Like, this is creepy stuff. I remember as a kid, we would talk about, like, what would you do if, like, you hid in the school and you were there overnight, you know? And it's like, there's not really much to do. Like, it's just a kid
No.
thing, I guess. Go to the
Yeah.
band room? I don't know.
Yeah, my elementary school was terrifying.
Oh,
And I remember when I was probably in like junior high or something, and we would have, one actor play practice and things like that. And we would be at the elementary school super late.
mhm.
And we didn't want to be in that old school because it was just creepy.
Mhm.
But for some reason, there's a weird fascination with kids showing up at the school that I'm at now, where they want to find ways into the building at night. I'm like, what are you gonna do?
What is there to do?
All the doors are locked. There's like
Yeah.
nothing for you to do in the building. You could use the bathroom, I suppose. Just
Very
in there.
exciting.
Yeah.
Huh. Wow, that is interesting. Big Brother and Kiori go one way, and the other three boys search the biology lab for one boy's lucky bracelets. Big Brother finds little sister's shoe in the hall, and then they hear loud thumps approaching, and it's a ginormous pair of legs strolling down the hall, like where shoes would be the size of the children. That's how big this is. So, for what I could find, this might be a reference to Ashare Yashiki, which is a giant foot, which would appear as a huge dirty foot just in your home. I don't know why, but this is the closest thing I could find on the yokai list to why this giant boy is perusing the school. I thought it was just a giant boy, but also after Pink Monkey Dude, then we go to this giant boy, and I was like, I love everything that's happening in this. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're just again, it's we said buckle up when you meet this weird little pink thing, and it just the ride just kind of keeps getting more and more bizarre and weird
Yeah.
dream logic, and and that just sort of it made it so fun. It just made it a
Yes.
cartoon.
Yeah, it reminds me, there's parts in this movie that remind me of how I felt as a kid seeing the movie Labyrinth. Like she goes through the door and she's falling down the well of like hands that are making faces and talking to her. And it's like, there's no reason or description on why this is happening. And as a kid, you're just like, oh my gosh, like this is so wild yet exciting. And my brain just like loves that. We're not going to bog you down with the logistics of everything. Just get ready for a series of some wild images happening. Uh, so Kiori ducks into a room, and the legs follow Big Brother. He hides in a closet. He peeks out, and you just see this giant face staring in at him. And he leans back and then just falls into a black void where you're just like, whoa, okay. I don't know if that was the end game of the giant or what the situation was going on, but it leads directly. And people, as you're listening to this, you go, this sounds so wild. This movie must be so long. It is not a long movie. We go straight from that sequence into one of my favorite sequences in the whole film. It's the sequence that made me seek out the film in the first place. We're back in the biology lab. The boy finds the bracelet and then sees a dead frog standing up, making creepy sounds at him. It's pretty amazing. He screams, then a bug falls on the other kid. Hitoshi runs into an anatomical dummy, which is like one of those where half of it is painted like a man and the other half is exposed organs and muscle. He pulls the intestines out of it, throws them at another kid. The dummy grabs him, so the other boys pushed a giant stuffed bear into the two of them, knocking them to the ground before they hide in a closet. And then the dummy bashes a hole in, but he can't reach them. It's an incredible sequence. It's so crazy. And as a kid, if I had seen this, it would have been. I mean, as an adult, I feel this way, but as a kid, I would have been like, this is the best thing I've ever seen. Because it doesn't feel dumbed down for kids, you know?
No, there were some genuine moments of just actual like, oh, this is scary.
Yeah.
Like that, those guts were
Yes. Goofy.
and you see that in movies. That's not stuff that you make for a kids movie
No.
like
No.
anymore.
Mm-mm.
And I mean, maybe we were spoiled growing up with things like that, but I don't know. Yeah, it was, and there's some stuff that happens later in the movie. I rewatched it again. That's just this morning to refresh my memory,
Nice.
but there's some stuff where it's like, oh, geez, I mean, if I saw this movie when I was a kid, I
Yes.
would still be talking about being traumatized by the weird dummy, like I'm traumatized by,
Yeah.
Atreyu in the swamp.
Uh-huh. Yeah. No, seriously, it's dead eyes. I mean, and that's so cool too, because the face of it, that's the half that's painted like a person, is super anime. Like it's very You know what I mean? Like the eye, everything is it's like straight out of the manga that it would be, attributed to. So it's just cool to see that even that link in the art. But yeah, the gut sound, just the I don't know, it just it this movie is so well made for kids to get to feel scared, like a good haunted house, not the kind where someone's gonna run up to them with a chainsaw and just make them pee their pants, but like something that's
Right.
an age appropriate haunted house type situation. That's what this movie feels like for me, and this is a perfect month to be talking about it. So next, the teacher tells Throw Up Brother about when he was a kid and he teased a girl and then she vanished. And I've seen this movie now probably 8 times, and I still don't quite get this story.
No,
Like
I didn't really catch it the first time. I kind of thought that, we have a little bit of ghostly crossover with
right.
people who show up possibly in the movie at some point, but then I was like, well, no, that can't be quite right. But I don't know, maybe it's just him saying, "Oh, this was my experience with the ghosts, and I'm
Yeah.
now trying to relate to you children."
Yeah, I think
But
that's got to be what it. I mean, they cut back to it later, but it doesn't. I don't feel like it has to do with the finale of the film. I don't know. It's strange. So the mom finds the boy and teacher outside, and Big Brother falls out of a coal chute, or a furnace or something. He comes out of the building. So he went into a void. He comes out of the building. I don't know how that works exactly, but now we know that you can escape the building. I guess. And the boys in the closet see the light turn on, so they leave the closet, and there's a janitor, which is why we're talking to you today.
perfect.
I was hoping there was a janitor in this because people really loved your Toxic Avenger episode. They
Good.
loved just your perspective on everything when you talked about what you did before and then the joy that you find in your job now. And it's like emotional for me when that happens for people because, like, that was my goal with this is to have hopefully a platform where people could share their experiences and shed light on professions that other people don't see, the importance like you've discussed and the role that you can play for kids, and that's so awesome. So to find another movie where I was like, yes, we're back together, all right, like
Good.
so the janitor shows up, and oh man, this guy,
He was great.
he's super good. So he's there at night, and he's kind of sad about the mess. Let's talk a little bit about hours. And like you said, you wouldn't be there at this time. I mean, how late do you work after the children are gone?
So for me, my position starts in before everybody gets to the school.
Got it.
I get there at 6:30 in the morning so I can go around and get everything set up, turned on, lights on,
Mm-hmm.
doors unlocked, everything like that. And I run through. I'm gone before the last bell rings for the day, so I'm not there at dismissal or anything, but we have a whole crew that comes in after I leave well, I mean, at our school, there's four of them who come in and they're there to go through and do all of the cleaning at night until, like 11:30 at night. So they're doing the bulk of the heavy lifting when it comes to keeping the school just
Mm-hmm.
clean
Mm-hmm.
and disinfected and everything like that. My position is more reactive.
Yeah, I gotcha.
If there's an issue, I take care of it. And theirs is like, okay, we're gonna do the reset,
Mm-hmm.
to make sure that it's like school never happened the day before. You come in, clean room, teachers feel good about it. Students feel good about it. It's nice, it's set up, it's ready to go.
Got it.
So, but yeah, there's somebody there all night. Some schools have third shift people as well
Hmm.
that, work overnight, just, buffing floors and doing this, that, and the other thing, which boy, I wouldn't want to work third shift at a school.
and
They're creepy. They're creepy.
yeah, and you mentioned summer. You don't get the summer off?
No, no, summer's the time that we're working probably the hardest
Really?
because we've got, well, so I don't know exactly how many rooms off the top of my head we have, but literally every room in the building, every surface in the building gets cleaned. So if teachers are moving to another school
Mm,
or moving rooms or whatever, we got to do this room, this room, this room, this room. We touch everything that's in that room and clean it and pull things out. Really, the only thing that the teachers do to help us get prepared for it is just kind of shove everything, like
right.
desks and chairs, into the middle of the room.
Okay.
And then we go through and just take pictures of the room so we can work around, clean it up, pull it out, and reset it. So it's like nothing ever changed.
Hmm.
But everything just gets cleaned, and that's a 5 days a week, 8-hour shift where you're hauling furniture in and around the building, using, like I said, carpet extractors to clean the carpet,
Right.
floor buffers to make them nice and shiny. Just yeah, making it so it's like a brand new room for when the teachers show up that next year and to get set up for school. So,
And are you just with your thoughts? Are you listening to books on tape? Can you play music during that time that there's not school?
oh, I'm locked into podcasts
Gotcha.
and this, that, and music, just to whatever I'm in the mood for.
Hmm.
It's actually been very, very helpful, and like I've gotten a new appreciation for I can get scared again.
Okay, cool.
I'm a lifelong horror nerd,
Yeah.
and we get jaded from so many years of just watching new movies and nothing
Hmm.
really gets you anymore. But I'll tell you one thing, when you get to a school at 6 o'clock in the morning and it's dark and you have to go around, it's this empty liminal space and turn on like all of the lights and everything, and you're listening to a story or about a haunted this, that, or the
Yes,
other thing,
yes.
you legitimately get scared again.
Yeah, I love it.
And it's great.
Yeah, there's something like, I mean, listeners will know if a movie like works for me, I'll talk about it for like a year straight. Like I just won't be able to because it's so, like you said, it's a rare gem when something happens where it creeps into your bones and you're like, oh, that like really freaked me out for a second, you know?
Yeah.
Because a lot of us, you kind of know the beats and what's going to happen. Not in this movie, we didn't know it was going to happen, but.
No, not a bit.
Speaking of the film, the janitor says, "We can leave, but we have to clean first." And then suddenly he's gone and the lights go back out. You're like, well, something's going on here. And then the boys are too scared to go to the bathroom, so they just pee in the hall. That had to hurt.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
That makes me chuckle.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, yeah, I wouldn't put it past them.
Yeah, but they even said, like, are you going to go into the bathroom? And they're like, yeah, no, we're just going to all pee here. Big brother tells the teacher and mom that Hitoshi is in there. So they're like, well, we should probably go in. Little throw up brother gives the big brother a page from the spell book, and the teacher and big bro go in, but the door slams. So suddenly the mom's trapped on the outside. Teacher looks around for the boys. They all find each other, and then the teacher behind him rises up. Our good old buddy, it's the pink weird gorilla ghost thing is behind him, and he's sticking his tongue out, and he's flying around. He's just a rad party animal.
みんな無事かなんだよ俺だよなんで逃げんだよおい逃げんだってどうしたんだよ
Yeah. He's great.
He's so like the first time I saw him, I was like, I hope we get more of him. And then when he shows up again, I was like, yes, okay, great,
Yeah.
just keep
And like
coming
you
with
said,
that guy.
he's just the Slimer,
Yeah.
He just like shows up, does a weird little thing, and then just kind of
He
disappears.
just leaves, and I love that he flies around completely haphazardly, running into stuff. So like he's hitting lights and stuff down the hallway, and they're really moving. Like you said in the beginning, aside from the watermelon in the beginning, it's like all practical, everything, and that's one of the things that's so charming about the film is nowadays it would be all just computer generated. So you just be like, yeah, sure, this is happening, or yeah, sure, what like you don't feel like they did. Well, we'll get to what they did, but yeah. So Pink Gorilla Guy, the rad party animal, disappears. Hitoshi hides in the ceramics room, which is the sequence that would probably give the most children nightmares.
Yeah.
So he's hiding in the ceramics room, and suddenly all the kids' sculptures in there start melting and becoming clay arms. And this is stop motion animation. It's just weird and
Yeah.
bizarre and beautiful. And suddenly, the entire floor of the room this little boy is in the dark, is covered in smoke and clay arms, and they literally pull him down into the ground and cover him, and that's it.
Reminded me of The Gate with all the little
Yes.
guys, the little demon guys
Oh,
from The
yeah.
Gate trying to like grab at all the kids. Like, I mean, it
Hmm.
was very inspired.
Yeah. I love The Gate, both
Yeah.
of them, actually. Kiori and Big Brother are chatting when an entire undead orchestra starts playing. So, like, it is people, it's back to back ghost special effects in this movie. Like, it's a second that Big Brother and Kiori are talking. They touch hands, and you think you're hearing the score swell in the movie, but it's an actual ghost, like, optical illusion, zombified orchestra playing.
Yeah. It's like a bunch of different episodes of Are You Afraid of the Dark
Yeah.
just smashed into an hour and 40 some odd
Yeah.
minutes or whatever the movie was.
It's so great and not really even interacted with. You see the guy conducting just kind of gives you a sneering sort of ghost look, but like nothing worthy of 7 to 10 apparitions at once where you would be like, "Oh my god." It's really amazing. So one puke brother tells the other that a sacred thing is broken on campus and it has to be restored. So Puke Brother turns to the spell book. Big Brother heads to the janitor closet that he escaped through, but there's no hole there. He can't escape the school again. The teacher finds the janitor cleaning up the pee. He's not very stoked about it. And the janitor says he knows where all the kids like to hide. And he does. They're all in the closet. Do you feel like you have a insider sort of view of the kids working on at the school? Like, do you know where they like to hide, or?
Yeah, I know how I'm the hide and seek champion of the school.
Aha.
Yeah, anytime that we've got an issue with a kid who's run off or can't find them or anything like that, if we have to go into like I guess I call it the search protocol,
Mm-hmm.
even though it's that's a much more intense than it actually is. I mean, it is scary when a
Sure.
kid got away, especially if they're a kid who's got troubles.
Sure.
I find them pretty quickly. I know how they get on the roof.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know all of the little ins and outs of where they can and can't go. Mr. Joe will find them.
Mr. Joe's gonna find you. Then the janitor says, "Who took a leak in the hall?" And suddenly, a bug proboscis comes out of his mouth, and that's where we go. Uh-oh, the janitor's got something going on here. And then huge bug arms, people, you're hearing this correctly, extend from his abdomen behind the teacher. So the kids scream that you always bring ghosts around because the pink dude appeared behind him before earlier. And then he chases them as he has all these rad appendages waving off of his body down the hallway.
Scary.
Oh my gosh. It's so great. Like every time you think like, "Oh, I think I know where this movie's going." No, it's not. We've got a giant half bug janitor now. So they all hide in a room, but the room is upside down. So we've gone from bug janitor to what I was talking about with the practical effects. They've built a room that is completely upside down where they are walking along the fluorescent lights and the desks and chairs are up on the ceiling. It's so cool looking, and there wouldn't be any problems except that pink guy's back and he says, "Hey," and as he flies around he bumps into some of the chairs and tables and they start descending down upon and smashing these lights next to these kids. It's a crazy effect sequence.
Yeah, I was honestly when they walked into that room, the transition from the hallway and the
Mhm.
intensity that the weird bug janitor man
Mhm.
cockroach thingy
It's
brought to it
yeah.
to all of a sudden it's just like really calm and
Mhm.
serene, but the setup was beautiful.
Yeah.
Like it looked fantastic. I think I honestly, when it happened, it was a very Keanu moment where I was just like, "Whoa!"
Yeah, yes. Yeah. Anything that's that stark white too, I always think of Phantasm. And
Yeah.
it,
Oh,
it just
sure.
has this
Yeah.
like anyway.
And I think that's where I first noticed that they were legitimately using the music from the Goonies
Yeah.
in the movie.
Yeah.
Like like when they first discover the pirate map and you like hear the it's that little ditty they play on the piano a few times in the Goonies. They just straight up use that in this movie. And I kind of had to go back and listen to see because that's why I was recognizing the music is because I mean it's straight lifted from the Goonies.
Yeah, it might be one of the reasons this isn't out on discs, but I feel like that's an easy fix, people. If you can find a way around it, release these movies, just replace that music. You can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love this part. So what happens is the desks and chairs are descending, the lights are exploding around them because again they're on the ceiling, and then Big Brother pulls out the spell page he was given and it halts one of the desks and chairs from smashing him. The teacher grabs the page, rips it on accident, and then the desk and chair fall anyway. So the teacher puts the papers back together, and the image on the paper becomes a butterfly made of light, which then flies away, and they follow it.
Yeah, perfect. It's for protection.
I mean, we all knew this is what was going to happen.
Yeah.
Two boys are chased by the janitor into a room where we see a lady sitting on a chair with a mask over her mouth. This lady has not been introduced yet in the film. She removes the mask, and she's the slit mouth woman. Now, this yokai, I know. This is Kuchisaki Onna, which is slit-mouthed woman. So here's for the listeners who slit-mouthed woman is. It says, if you happen to encounter her in a dark alleyway, she will ask you whether she is beautiful, and if you reply with no, she'll stab you. And if you reply yes, she'll pull her mask down to reveal her mouth has been slit open from ear to ear. She will repeat the question, and if you reply no, she'll stab you. But if you reply yes, she'll slit your mouth from ear to ear with scissors. So, unfortunately, there's no escaping the slit-mouthed woman.
That's terrible.
It's pretty awful. But she is just there. They run away from her, and that's all we ever see of her. So it's just so crazy that they're just like, oh, by the way, here you go. And you go, ah! And then they just like move on. It's just... Okay, so she's not teaming up with the janitor people, if you're keeping track of what's happening here. So Moped Mama returns with a bunch of motorcyclists, and they search for broken items around the school to place on the giant pentagram outside. Meanwhile, the butterfly, that's made of light, leads Kaori, Big Brother, and Teacher into a weird part of the school where they find the two other boys that were being chased in a cabinet filled with, like, cotton, and also the little sister is there.
I kind of read it as almost like the like a spider web.
Yeah.
Like the janitor's insect parts.
Yes.
Like he was turning into a spider or something, and like that was his web. At least that's how I read it. But
I mean, every time I watched it, I was like, what? And then I'd be like, I guess, because he caught them and then put them in there to like keep him. Because he refers to this area of the school as his castle, which is just a bunch of junk that makes the rooms look like a haunted house kind of thing.
Yeah.
Basically. So I love this part so much. So they release the kids, and the janitor lowers down, kind of spider-like, like you're saying, and one kid knocks the janitor's glasses off, and his eyes are in the frames of the glasses, and they're like looking around and blinking. It's such a cool practical effect that I was looking at and just being like, they did that just for this 1 second in the movie, because next one of the Puke brothers just stomps on the glasses, and what this does is sets into motion another transformation for the janitor, who's already been mutating, and now he's going to mutate even further into a crazy monster troll type thing. It is really awesome. So two boys then go down this like dumbwaiter. They have to climb up because the giant monster is there. They rejoin the others. This whole sequence is like they're basically getting pushed into one hallway. And outside, they've put all the broken things out on the pentagram. They've found the statue with the head, so they put that together from the very beginning. This is the thing that kind of set into motion this special situation. And Circle lights up. Inside, though. They spray the janitor with a fire extinguisher in one sequence, which is pretty crazy. And they make a wall so that he can't get them. And then the teacher smashes the lock on the door so they can escape, only it's just a giant void. So they don't know what to do. Big brother says, I went through it before. Teacher's like, okay. So he just picks up the little girl and he just jumps into the void. So finally, it's just one boy and Kiori, and he goes to hug her, and he passes right through her. She's a ghost. So she says, you gotta go. He goes down the hole. A ball of light flies through the whole school, hits the janitor, making him a man shape again and not a monster. And he says, don't run in the halls, which is
Yeah.
it's a great last line. All the surviving kids and the teacher fall into a pool. They all look up at the empty building, and we see the back of the ghost girl walk away. Days later, the kids reconnect and bring flowers to the old school, and they introduce themselves to the building because they say they met the ghost, but they never introduced themselves. And now they're all friends. The end.
Yeah. Great.
It's such. It feels almost insane to be like talking about the events of the movie in such quick succession because I mean it's not a long movie and there is special effect after special effect as the movie progresses. It's a lot. It's a lot. What are your final thoughts for this wonderful film?
I mean, I loved it. I really did think that had I seen it, when I was younger, this would kind of be up there with a lot of those, movies that I grew up with, like I said
Mhm.
before, Monster Squad, Gate,
Mhm.
stuff like that. Things that just kind of, but it also feels like something that I may have like seen, once and then completely forgotten about, except
Yeah.
I'm still traumatized by it,
Right.
like the peanut butter experiment. I don't know
Right.
if you're familiar with
Oh,
that
I own
movie,
it.
but
Yeah, it's right over here.
oh, great. I mean, like that one, I think that I may have seen it. I know that I've seen it, but I'm still traumatized by it. But I refuse to watch it now because I don't want, I want to hold on to that trauma.
Yeah, sure.
I don't want to ruin it as an adult and go, oh, this really wasn't
This
scary
is
at
what it was.
all. Like,
I would be interested in how you'd feel about that because for me, because I've done a fair number of episodes on kinder trauma movies. I maybe because I can always go back. It's like Dave Kahan of Depeche Mode said that it's not hard for him to sing songs that are like 40 years old because he connects to the emotion of when he first sang it. And I feel like that's true for kinder trauma movies for me. Like I can still connect to that little boy that was watching it that was like freaked out by it. Whether that's the Wheelers in The Return to Oz or, like you said, Peanut Butter Experiment or The Great Land of Small. There's just images and things that like they still give me the same feeling even though I'm older. Like it's never
yeah.
demystified or even when I showed my daughter the never ending story with the horse going into the mud, I was like, oh man, it's gonna mess her up, and she just cackled and I was like, that's the sad part, and she was just like, I don't care. I was like, okay, okay,
What's
cool.
wrong with
Wow,
me?
okay.
It's one of the most traumatizing moments in
Right.
cinema history. What are you talking about, child?
It was so funny. She
Yeah.
just
I
yeah.
don't know. Like, I do feel though that like kids are, I mean, not to just be, old man yells at clouds, but like kids are kind of desensitized to a lot of the things that, we kind of took for, I guess, I hate to say took for granted, but
Mhm.
like, I mean, I was a video store kid, I know you clearly were.
Yeah.
But like I was allowed to take home single mom. She's like, just bring home whatever.
Mhm.
Like, I don't care. So I was introduced to a lot of these things that I shouldn't have been watching really early. But like, even still, like, you never really knew what you were gonna
Mhm.
get. Whereas like now, kids can start something and like if they're just not into it, they can just turn it off and go to something else.
Right.
You don't really have that option. Like you went out of your way to rent this movie. You're gonna sit and watch Dreamscape all the way through,
Yes.
even if it is terrifying to
So
you
true.
as a small child. Like because you went out of your way to find this one, you spent time to
Mhm.
look for it. And, now I've got kids I ran into the grocery store when they were on fall break who were trying to get me to sign them in to go see Terrifier 3. Like, not going to do that.
Right.
One, you're 9.
Yeah.
You didn't want to see that movie.
Yeah, exactly. Although, I mean, when I was 9, 10, like my daughter, when we were talking about this pre-record, but she has like a little book club, and so like 5 friends will hang out, and I'm pretty sure I had one friend until I was 10, and that's when they changed schools zoning, and then I met these two other kids that came from this other school to our elementary school, and we just found each other, and we were like, okay, we are clearly outcasts. This is our group. And it was around 10. So it's been really weird because now they're talking about stuff on Netflix and stuff, but when I was a kid, we were talking about these VHS movies in the video store, and it was like, oh, have you seen this? And have you seen this? And it was like only R-rated stuff. Like it was only, whatever, not Fright Night 2, but like, yeah, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, obviously I talk about all the time on the podcast, but that was a huge one. Watching the Friday the 13th, I see your shirt there.
Part 8.
Yeah, any of those, because it had everything you're not supposed to see, the violence, the sex stuff, even though I was so young that you don't get it, you get that you're not supposed to be seeing it. And that type of thing was so enticing. And then you'd get freaked out too. And being freaked out was really, really fun, especially when you have your friends.
Yeah.
Because then it comes down to like at some point you have to go to the bathrooms, you have to walk down the dark hall in whoever's house, and you're like, oh, I don't really want to do that part because now it's not fun. But there's a lot to be said.
Yeah, I mean, I really do miss those days, but I also think about like those R-rated movies that like for some reason we watched Witchboard
Yeah.
like all the time. I don't know why. It's like not even really that. Maybe it's because I went to like a Catholic grade school and it was the Ouija board aspect of it that made it all like weird, but those weren't the movies that like yes, I remember them, but the ones that really got me, like I said, the ones that like The Gate, all of these kinder trauma movies, those are the ones that really, really like stuck with me. Not, somebody playing on getting an axe to the face, in Witchboard, until you get obviously to a certain point, you're starting in on the Evil Dead movies, and then your whole life changes, and you're just like, oh, this is the trajectory that we want to go on.
That's so funny because it clearly was like for the kids that liked Fangoria and things like that. There was before you saw like Evil Dead 1 and 2, and then there's after. And it's like before I felt like there was a pedigree or something to things, where it's like we're going to watch Children of the Corn, like the first one, and you're like, cool, got it. That's not unhinged and wild like,
No.
Evil Dead was. So, yeah, it was and it really like made those of us that hunger to see new things, you go, well, if this is out there, what else is out there? And then, you're out there renting whatever wild thing you can come across.
Yeah. And then you find Blood Diner and you're like, what is even happening?
It's like you knew my childhood because that's exactly what happened is we saw Blood Diner and we were like, that's all we quoted all the time. We're like, Jackie Kong, best director ever. I have the autographed Blu-ray right over here. Yeah, we would talk about Chitara and everything constantly. I mean, I haven't done an episode on Blood Diner. I've tried for years. I eventually will.
There's gotta be someone who runs a vegan restaurant that
Yes.
also serves humans.
Well, I do know some vegan chefs for sure. It's tricky getting someone that would appreciate the film. Because of the time and because Jackie was trying to outdo the boys in nastiness, and that was
Sure.
80s style, so some of it's homophobic in speech and things, so you have to find people that can approach art at the place where it was and the intention at the time. So it's tricky, but I eventually someday will champion such a film. But yeah, there's just so many great old weird things that came from and can be traced back to seeing these like kinder trauma movies. Like it really is like opening the doorway to, the kids that would grow to love splatter stuff and gore stuff and crazy comedies and Dead Alive and like all these things. It just like brings us endless joy.
Just that little taste of the guts on the dummy in this movie would be enough to just kind of go to one kid as like, okay, if that didn't like that freaked me out, but it didn't like scare me,
right?
That would have probably like helped push me over the edge. And I keep going back to The Gate, but it's like stabbing the eyeball in the hand.
Yes.
Yeah, that was an intense scene for a kid to see. But I mean, I don't. It's probably like 9 when I saw that movie. Or I don't even know how old I was, but I saw it, we used to get free HBO weekends,
Hmm.
and that one was on, all the time, and unregulated television watching was thanks mother
Yeah.
for like letting me do what I wanted to do to like mold me.
Hmm. Yeah. I'm so glad that you could see this extremely hard to see film. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. Thank you for your time. As always, it's a pleasure to get to chat.
Yeah, it was great. I had a great time watching it, great time chatting. Love chatting with you. It's great.
Awesome. Thank you. As always, I'm Dirk Marshall, and this has been VHS, where when it comes to celebrating rad films and even radder friends, we're not done yet.